He's been picked out. Socks down to his ankle. Picks out Stansfield. That's the hat-trick. And that's what dreams are made of.
Hello everybody and welcome to Park Life, the official Exeter City podcast. After a weekend off, City are back in action as they host Port Vale at the park on Saturday. Things could get a little bit tasty, so to guide us through it, I'm joined by four great guests as we build up to the game. Let's get straight into it. Coming up in today's show, I'm joined by XPression FM's Mikhail Shklover to preview Saturday's game against Port Vale as the Grecians search for that elusive win. Ilmari Niskanen also chats about his recovery from injury and how he maintains positivity despite adversity. Johnny from the Ale and the Vale podcast pops in to chat all things Port Vale before Alan Quick explains the importance of the Rainbow Laces campaign, which City will be supporting on Saturday. First up, I'm joined by Mikhail Shklover from XPression FM to get an in-depth review of City's recent results. Michael, welcome to Park Life. Thanks for joining us. It's been a bit of a tricky couple of months for the Grecians after some disappointing performances in the league while also getting knocked out of our COP competitions as well. What have you made of some of the recent form?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. It's great to be back on the Park Life pod for the second time this season. On the recent form, of course, Exeter knocked out of the FA Cup in the first round by Wigan, knocked out of the Carabao competition, which they have to be proud of, but they were knocked out by Middlesbrough. Obviously managed to get a win in the dreaded Bristol Motors Trophy this season as well against Wigan, but that didn't aid their progression into the next round. So yeah, it's been a tricky few months even, for Exeter City supporters. But I think the game against Shrewsbury last week showed some signs of progress, especially on the contrast with the 7-0 defeat to Bolton.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there were clear improvements on Tuesday compared to what was, by Gary Colwell's admission, a bit of an embarrassment. But what do you think it is that City aren't quite getting right at the moment? They were improved slightly against Shrewsbury, but there are still a few key things missing.
Yeah, I think that there's a few things, and most of it, in my opinion, are attacking momentums. I mean, Gary Caldwell mentioned it, that it's not the lack of talent, it's not the lack of quality, it's not the lack of skill that Exeter is lacking up top, it's the lack of belief. And this is actually somewhere I agree with Exeter City's manager. The Grecians are creating chances. We saw it against Shrewsbury, we saw it in other home games this season, we even saw it away at times as well. City are creating chances, they're making good movement down the wings, they're delivering balls into the box. They're getting shots away, they're getting chances, and at large chunks of games, they are dominating sometimes, but it just doesn't seem to come together for Exeter City. And last season, we would often see them finish these chances. In this campaign, it hasn't quite been the case, and I think this is what has cost Exeter City so far.
Yeah, I mean, chances being created, but a real lack of goals being scored. No league goals since that draw against Lincoln. What is it that City need to do to get back into the free-scoring form that we saw at the start of the season?
Be more confident, I guess. Have that belief. I mean, Exeter have to. It's the same players. It's the exact same players in the squad. Yes, of course, there's been injuries. Of course, Mitchell is out for the majority of the season. Some players are coming back, but it's the exact same players that were at the beginning of the season, scoring goals and winning against Reading, beating Wickham, getting draws against Blackpool, winning again against Carlisle. I'm basically listing all the fixtures that Exeter won, but it's the exact same players. It's the confidence that perhaps is lacking. And the main advice you can try and give is maybe go at the opponent early on, because often so happens in games. Exeter start off strongly, create the chances, and just don't manage to convert them into goals. And as the game develops, the confidence kind of reduces for Gary Caldwell's side. And this is where Exeter City often get punished by the opponents. At least that's what I saw during some of my commentaries for XPression this season. So what I would say is be more confident up top, because Exeter have got good quality players in this team.
Yep, and I mean, it's unfair, I suppose, to say that Gary's not trying different things. Check Diabate up top. That seems like a pretty brave decision. What have you thought of Czech's performances in a very different position to what he's used to?
Well, first of all, we have to say how difficult it must be for Czech Diabate. I mean, we remember he was out for a big chunk of last season with a reoccurring foot injury. Started off this season on the sidelines as well. And to come into the side, which has been struggling in the league over the last few weeks, not as perhaps as strong as at some times last season. So he's coming to the side and he's coming into a position he's not yet played football at such a high level. So first of all, it is very difficult for Cheick Diabate. And as many fans would think he has underperformed, it is difficult for him. I think at times against Shrewsbury in the game where I watched him go up top, he has the physical strength to hold up the play. He obviously has the heading ability. He actually came very close with a header in front of the big bank in the first half.
Gary seems to be trying a lot of different things at the moment. Cheick Diabate up top is just one of the different tactical decisions that he's made. Worth noting Yannick Wilshutt's performances recently, maybe one of the bright sparks at the top end of the pitch at the moment.
I couldn't agree more, Tom. I was actually extremely proud of Wilshutt's performance. I thought he was by far the best player on the pitch against Shrewsbury. Excellent dribbling. The amount of chances that he created for his team was actually very impressive. He was definitely the bright spark in that Exeter City side. I was even surprised to see him come off for Vincent Harper, and despite the fact that there were only 5 minutes left, I thought Wilshutt, if there was anyone who was going to win the game against Shrewsbury for Exeter City, it was going to be Yannick Wilshutt. He's had a great few games, especially the last one, and hopefully he would be one of the people to hopefully get a result for Exeter City against Port Vale. Another player I would mention, Niskanen, also a great performance from him, in my opinion, against Shrewsbury. Great attitude shown, and even early in the half when he slid down in front of the big bank to try and win a corner for Exeter City, risking an injury as well. And he got the appreciation from the big bank, which shows that the fans clearly see the right attitude that is present with him and a lot of other players in the squad. And that's the character that Exeter City needs at the moment.
Yeah, two players that have impressed despite the poor run of form at the moment. And of course, we'll hear from Imi a little bit later in the pod. We've mentioned it a couple of times, but that Shrewsbury game, a big improvement on what we saw against Bolton. Admittedly, it was a little bit difficult to get much worse than that, if we're being totally honest. But did you see some signs from that performance that there could be a move in the right direction? You know, a draw against a mid-table side at the moment could maybe give us a few encouraging signs to take that forward to Saturday.
Definitely. There's a few things that actually symbolize that. First of all, the reactions from the fans of the Big Bang. When the game was about to kick off, and, you know, the warm-up always happens on Exeter City's half next to the Big Bank, and usually when the players march back or run back into the dressing room, they are applauded and surrounded by a big chorus of cheers. But as the game developed, the Big Bank once again stood behind the team, and as Exeter City got closer and closer to the goal, which they unfortunately couldn't eventually get, the Big Bank was almost back to its normal self, which is a good sign in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. No, it certainly is. Some improvements against Shrewsbury, but Gary said that after the defeat to Bolton, he saw that reaction against Shrewsbury, but he wants even more. I mean, those 3 points that seem to be eluding the Grecians at the moment are just so important. And that, I guess, is the real challenge that the whole squad kind of needs to face up to against Port Vale on Saturday.
I agree and I think that's something you may agree with me, Tom. At the moment, because Exeter City haven't won for so long, each draw, whether that be home and away, almost feels like a loss. If you think about the game against Lincoln, if you obviously think about the game we're talking about now, the Shrewsbury fixture at home, both of them to some extent feel like a loss because the winless run continues. What Exeter City need to do, they almost have to want it more in the penalty area, because we talked about conversion. Once the balls are delivered into the penalty area, once Exeter get those runs down the flanks, once they attack with numbers, once they put men forward, nobody is there to collect the second ball on the edge of the box. No one is there to make that jump, get that header and get in front of the defender. And this is what Exeter needs to try and increase their goal tally, to try and get the 3 points. This is something we saw clearly last season from Stansfield. We saw it from Nombe. And the players that are currently leading the line for Exeter City need to show that as well, in my opinion. They have to want it in the penalty area. And once they do, the goals will come. Because it's a very strong team on paper. It's a talented squad. And as I said earlier in this episode, it's a squad that can score goals, and they have showed it early in this campaign.
I guess then it just is a confidence thing, right? And I guess that makes Saturday's game even bigger. The preparation, so crucial. They've got to want it. I'm sure they will. I've spoken to Imi already. That's coming up a little bit later. The squad are desperate for a win. And against Port Vale, a side in a pretty similar position to our own, they started really well, but haven't won in League One since the 16th of September, 11 games. Surely, if there's a game that we're going to be right up for and a game that we can really win, then this Port Vale game is absolutely crucial.
I couldn't agree more again, Tom. It's the last home game until Boxing Day for Gary Caldwell's side. And Andy Crosby's side, well, I have to say, to some extent, their season has almost been as identical as it could be to Exeter City. The last time they won in the league was the exact same day that Exeter City beat Cheltenham. They also have been on a bad run of form in League One. They also, somewhere in their campaign, have a 7-0 defeat, although that happened way earlier for them as well. They started off well and then they fell off. And it's a crucial game for them as well. They are not scoring enough goals at home. They are obviously in the bad run of form. And Andy Crosby, for his side, it's as big of a game as it is for Exeter City. And this is a 6-pointer in its definition.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's unfair to say. The big question then is, can we do it? Can we show those signs of improvement from Shrewsbury and get that win that is so needed at the moment to inspire that positivity?
I think we can, Tom. You know me well, Tom. I'm always the most optimistic individual in the room you can find. And the game against Shrewsbury gave hope. And if Exeter City are not going to do it now, when will they do it? I think it's the best time to do it against Port Vale. It's a team that is sat right next to Exeter City in the league. It's a team that is struggling. I mean, if Exeter City managed to play an even game with a strong mid-table Shrewsbury side, surely with the quality of football they presented in that game, they could come on top at home against Port Vale with the fans that I'm sure would be in full voice after that performance against Shrewsbury and get the result. A win here, and if other results go their way, could see Exeter City go up all the way to 17th ahead of Cambridge United and Burton as well.
Yeah, and I guess that positivity from the fans, from the big bank, is going to be so crucial. The players really will feed off of that, and hopefully that will inspire them to a huge 3 points, which hopefully the Grecians could then take on to Stevenage the following week. A huge game that I'm sure is going to have fans on the edge of their seat throughout it. And of course, you can listen to the highlight commentary of Saturday's game over on XPression FM's Spotify. A little plug for your radio station.
Thank you so much,
Michael.
Tom. Thank you. No, of course, XPression FM, as always, is there in the press box for every single home game.
Yeah, well, it certainly is. Michael, thank you so much for joining me. Huge game on Saturday that is just a few days away. Next up, I'm joined by Ilmari Niskanen, or as he likes to be called, Imi, to talk about his personal recovery from injury and how the squad are itching to get the win they so need on Saturday. Imi, welcome to Park Life. Thanks ever so much for joining us. City are going through a bit of a rough patch at the moment, but if there's one man bringing the positive vibes, then I think it has to be you. You never seem to stop smiling. Surely that positivity must rub off on a few of your teammates, right?
Yeah, so I try to be the happy face in a locker room and try to cheer the boys up. Of course, it's not easy at the moment. Of course, everybody is really frustrated and disappointed on the current form we are in, but I don't think there is really point to just be angry all the time. Of course, like we have to show the frustration every once in a while in training, for example. But just trying to stay positive. And then I know that the current run of bad results will eventually end. Really hope that day is gonna be on Saturday. And I'm not like forcing any positivity or anything. It just comes up quite naturally from me. So usually I'm really on a good mood, and then try to affect that on the other people as well. And I like to try and make the other people happy as well, because that doesn't take anything away from me. So
yeah, well, no, absolutely, and it's a brilliant trait to have. It's got to be said. But how do you go about maintaining such positivity when the team are struggling on the pitch? You say that there's not much point in being angry about these things, but it is quite a mental challenge to keep those positive vibes high.
Yes, definitely isn't easy at all. And as you said, even though it's not really a point to be angry, but of course we all are really disappointed and frustrated. And but I would still say it is important to try to keep the spirits high, and no point of dwelling on the bad results or the disappointing performances like against Bolton, which was really embarrassing. But we played 3 days after that, so we couldn't really start to dwelling on that game, and wanted to bounce back definitely on the Shrewsbury game. And managed to do so at least a bit. So it was definitely a big step up from the Bolton game. Of course, really disappointed that couldn't get the 3 points, but performance was better. There are still, of course, a few key points we have to be better. So have to create more chances, then have to be more clinical in those. But yeah, those points we have been now working last week in training and this week in training as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that it has been a frustrating period, and I think the fans probably feel that as well. But as a player, as a member of the team, did you see a move towards a better response against Shrewsbury on Tuesday?
Yes, it definitely was a step towards the right direction against Shrewsbury, but as I say, still a lot to improve in a whole team's performance in my personal game as well. So I definitely feel like there is a lot to improve also in my game. But yeah, I know that will eventually come. Really hope it's gonna be on this Saturday. I know that whole team, me included, will definitely be more than ready. Now we have had almost 2 weeks time to prepare for the game. So there's going to be no excuses that we wouldn't be ready. Yeah, now we just have to be able to show that on a real game as well. And of course, that is the hardest part. But we are all desperate to go out there on a pitch and show everybody how good we actually can be, and try to get the same form back what we had in an earlier part of the season. Because all of us, we know that we can play well, and now we have to get that out from our system and need to perform, and desperately also want to give our fans moments of joy, because yeah, lately there hasn't been too many.
Yeah, and I think that the fans can see really that the whole team is really pushing for this win that seems to be eluding the side a little bit at the moment, but hopefully that will come on Saturday, and we'll get on to Saturday's game in a little bit. But I wanted to start, I wanted to move on, I guess, to talk a little bit about your start at Exeter City. So you joined in the summer, and you've taken to Exeter City really well, it must be said. It feels like you've really embraced everything that the club stands for, which I think the fans really appreciate. But it's been a bit of a mixed start for you. When you've played, you've been brilliant, but unfortunately, you've spent a lot of your time at the club on either the treatment table, or you've been unable to play because you didn't have international clearance. Has it been a bit of a frustrating start?
Yeah, it certainly has. A really, really frustrating start, I would say. Of course, the actual start what I had, so when I joined in August, the team was doing really well. Then when I finally got my international clearance, started against Reading, played well, the whole team played well. We were top of the table. Everything was feeling really good. I felt like I immediately got a great connection between the fans, and I truly loved the welcome what I had in there, and I was enjoying my football so much during that period. But then, yeah, unfortunately got injured during the international break in September. Also, that was my first major injury in 9 years. So it was a really big blow to take personally as well. And took 10 weeks in total. And then, yeah, at the same point, we couldn't really get results. So then when I finally got back in playing, it was Fleetwood away. So we weren't doing well as a team. I also feel like as I said already, that there is definitely still a lot of improvement what I have to do in my personal game as well. So I haven't been happy the way I've been performing now after being back. But I know the more I get to train with the team, the more I get to play. It's the old level is definitely gonna come back, and yeah, I'm not too worried about my own game, because I'm fully sure that as I keep working hard, the good days will come. And but yeah, of course, like, desperate to help the team also personally on a lot more than I've been doing now, and it will come.
On the right-hand side, which is where you've played, both in advanced positions and a little bit deeper as well, you've got some healthy competition. Dion Rankin coming back into the group from Chelsea, had a little bit of an injury at the start of the season, or at least after the first few games, and now he's back, sharing your position, if you like. Are you embracing that competition for places in that right midfield /right back /right wing position?
Yeah, I think it's great to have competition inside the squad. That's something what drives everybody forward in training, and that is important that we have the level in training as high as possible, because that is then eventually gonna turn into good performance in games as well. So I think healthy competition is something what we really much need in a squad as well. So it's brilliant to have Dio back as well, because he can bring a lot of great attributes to the squad. So it's competition is always brilliant.
And we spoke a little bit about your sort of engagement in the community a little bit earlier, but I wanted to touch on it again because you've done some great things since you've been at the club. I was there at Charlton away in the away end when you came over and saw a few of us fans, which I know that a lot of the City supporters really appreciated. And just last week, you even dressed up as Santa for the Community Trust's Santa Run. Amazing. How have you found embracing the community, spending time with the fans and really being a part of the club?
Of course, for all the players, but I would say especially for me, the connection between the fans is so important. So it brings so much joy for me as well to be able to meet the fans and spend time with them, talk with them. And then, of course, in the games, the support what we get from them is so vital for everybody. And the energy what I get from the crowd is just something so important for me. And the community in here is absolutely brilliant. The Community Trust, for example, I rate them really highly. All the stuff they do is brilliant, and overall, as I mentioned, the connection between the fans and the players is really special. It was start of November. Me and Bill got invited to the East Devon Grecians meeting, and we had the best time with them. Spent 2.5 hours just chatting with them, and it's just one example. It was absolutely brilliant. We both enjoyed it so much. So just the simple spending time with the fans is really important for me.
Yeah, and I was going to come on to your fellow Finn, Viljami Sinisalo. Vil's a bit like you, I guess, really embraced the supporter base, spent a lot of time talking to fans, and really embraced the club. Maybe it's just a bit of a Finnish thing, right?
But perhaps it is, yeah. But of course, it's really important for all the players to.
Yeah, of course. And I suppose that brings me on quite nicely to today, which is at least the day we're recording, Finnish Independence Day. Of course, a huge day of celebration for the Finnish people. And I did try and look up what Happy Independence Day is in Finnish, the translation. But to be honest, I don't really stand much of a chance pronouncing it. How are you planning on celebrating it? It's a huge day for the Finnish people.
It is a great day, definitely, and I'm really proud to be Finnish. Especially today is such an amazing day, and like the main tradition what we have now during the Independence Day is the president's party. So he invites people over to celebrate people who have been doing well during the year, and that whole thing is gonna be televised. So I will be, after this interview, turning the television on and sitting on a sofa for the next 4 or 5 hours watching the whole Finland celebrate. So, but yeah, it's just a big day for everyone.
You didn't quite manage to get an invite to the president's party this year, then?
Not yet. Hopefully someday that would be definitely something really special. And to be fair, every once in a while, footballers also they have been doing really well. Have been getting invitations. So perhaps one day that would be amazing for sure.
Have you got any sort of food, drink lined up? Any sort of staple Finnish snacks for the watch along?
I do actually have a few things. I will definitely have some rye bread, what I have still from back home. That's like the traditional nice bread. What we have, then possibly gonna make some rice porridge, which I really much like, and that's like a Finnish thing as well. Then of course would be quite nice to have some Finnish chocolate or stuff like that, but not gonna have too many today, but possibly a few. But just gonna be nice to watch it from the telly.
Imi, thank you so much for joining me on Park Life. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Now let's get the lowdown on Saturday's opponents, Port Vale, from Johnny from the Ale and the Vale podcast. Johnny, welcome to Park Life. Thanks for coming on. I suppose in many ways, Exeter City and Port Vale have had pretty similar seasons so far. A really strong start, followed by a string of pretty poor performances. What do you think's gone wrong for Vale?
Injuries mostly, and it's obviously quite easy to say injuries in most cases, but we started well. After about 8 games, we were both in and around the top 3, and then we lost James Wilson, and that was just kind of the start of our downfall. Really, we've had pretty poor recruitment in the summer up front. So striking options have been very limited, and then we're just hit by then a string of other injuries. So that's the short answer. The longer answer is that there's a lot of pretty football, but not a lot of end product in either box.
I suppose that kind of leads me quite nicely onto my next question, which is Vale's struggling to find the back of the net. Just the 14 goals across the campaign so far. I was going to ask how come you've struggled to find the back of the net, but I suppose the absence of James Wilson is a pretty big contributing factor to that.
Yeah, it's the main reason we struggled is we're great with the ball and we're a really pleasing team to watch until you get into the final third, and then we just seem a bit dejected of ideas. We don't use the wing backs and whip the ball in because we haven't got a big man that can head. We don't play the ball over the top because we haven't got a nippy lad. What we kind of rely on is we rely on Ben Garrity getting into the box and getting his head on something. And that's a tactic that can't really work for much longer. The lad's got 7 goals this season, which is brilliant. But you pay for a striker, you expect him to start chipping in. And between our 3 strikers, Wilson included, they've got 1 league goal, and that was James Wilson back in August. From a neutral point of view, watching Uche Pezu is fun because he's a big battering ram. He runs at people. There'll be a time on Saturday, 100% guaranteed, that where one of your defenders will grab hold of him. He usually bring the lad down and he'll just run with him, like holding on to him and drag him along. So it's fun to watch, but then you realise actually he's rubbish. So you may as well not bother, because the one thing he's going to do is his trampoline touch is going to give you the ball anyway if you don't foul him. So a lot of people have clocked onto it very quickly, and it's just the striker situation at the club's quite frankly embarrassing.
Let's focus in on a couple of your recent results then. The 1-0 defeat to Derby County was perhaps expected. I mean, I'm sure you'll have some complaints about it, but you've got to look at Derby and say, fair enough that they're a good footballing side. And I guess that was kind of expected, especially after losing to Shrewsbury. But for me, the one that sticks out like a sore thumb is the 2-1 loss to Cheltenham, especially considering the form they were in at the time. And I know it's a little while ago now, but it feels to me that kind of caused an even greater avalanche of form, I guess.
Yeah, that we were always going to lose that game. Darryl Clark was coming back to Vale Park for the first time. Like, we were always... that game was written in the stars that we were going to lose. The problem with it is the manner of the defeat was... the performance was dreadful, and it's probably the first time this season that we've actually not shown something in a game. Most games were, let's say, pretty in between the boxes, but will give a clear-cut chance and not really create one. So, like, you kind of see what we're trying. But Cheltenham was dreadful. Shrewsbury wasn't much better. We conceded 2 very sloppy goals in that, and the Derby game should have been a 0-0 draw. Our keeper made three good saves and 1 worldy of a save, but we handed them their goal by just kicking the ball to them and then not reacting. So, yeah, we're a victim of his own players at times. We'll give a clear-cut chance at some stage on Saturday. That's what we do, and that's one of our big issues. We rely on Connor Ripley to get us out of the mess that we create. And luckily he does most of the time.
Yeah, you've been pretty scathing of your form and I suppose some of the results recently, which I think is fair, all things considered. But actually, your away form isn't too bad. 10 points from 10 games is quite impressive for a team that hasn't won in the league at all since mid-September. Maybe that's a positive?
Yeah, away from home, we kind of... We know how to shut up shop. We've done well defensively away from home, but the aim away from home seems to be not lose rather than try and win a game. So you'll see that We've got a young lad in midfield on loan from Sheffield United, Ollie Arblaster, who, if fit, is the best centre midfielder in this league. But the issue is when he's passing to Uche Ekpezu, it doesn't really matter, because you get that Sunday football feeling of what's the point in us trying to run past him, because he's either going to touch it to bring it down and it'd be a worldie, or it's going to bounce off him in one of 6 directions and you're going to be defending your own box again. So for all the positives we've got in the side, Alfie Devine, he's won stuff at England at youth level. He's been touted for big things at Spurs, but we've got loads of positives there. Funzo Ojo, another centre midfielder, is doing really well. Garrity, our attacking midfielders, finding the back of the net. So we've got positives in midfield, but it just seems all around it that we kind of struggle to just knit it in together.
You've had a few mixed results at St James Park in recent years. My mind immediately flicks back to our promotion campaign when you stopped us from winning the league after we were defeated on the final day of the season. I think you managed to get into the playoffs as a result of that. But also, it would be disingenuous to forget the 4-0 thumping we gave you last time you visited the park. Are you looking forward to visiting SJP once again?
Not really. It's a million miles away, and it's going to be freezing cold. And at least the one positive is the away end's a little more accommodating now than it used to be. But yeah, not really. There's a nice pub nearby that we always go to, so that's a positive. Like you say, I think the victory there was our first victory in about 3-4 attempts. So. Never look forward to it. Like I say, it's an absolute disaster to get to, but it's going to be a very interesting game. I think it's 2 teams that need a win more than they need not to lose.
I suppose then I just have to ask you: are you confident for Saturday's game? Do you think you can get that win that you've been missing for so long?
Head says no, heart says, of course we can. So. Yeah, I think we're not a million miles away, and that's the big thing. Like. As negative as I've been in this, we're not a million miles away from being a good side.
I mean, a huge game on Saturday. We'll have to see how it goes. Johnny, thank you so much for joining me on Park Life.
You're welcome, mate.
Last but certainly not least, I'm joined by Alan Quick to discuss the importance of the Rainbow Laces campaign. This week, Exeter City will celebrate the 10th year of the Rainbow Laces campaign at Saturday's home match against Port Vale. So who better to speak to than the man who's campaigned against homophobia for nearly all of his life, including co-founding Exeter Pride, as well as the proud Grecians. Alan, welcome to Park Life. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, really pleased to be here.
Amazing. Let's talk a little bit about the Rainbow Laces campaign then. Just give our listeners a little bit of context about what it is and what the campaign is aiming to do.
Yeah, so Stonewall, the LGBT campaign group, founded the Rainbow Laces campaign to encourage people to be more accepting to LGBTQ plus people in sport just 10 years ago. And it's encouraging people to just be more accepting, be allies as well. So yeah, it's doing just to increase visibility and make people aware that there are LGBT people out there that play sport, and they're part of the community. So that's what it's about, really.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a really important issue that Exeter City have done amazing work with in the past. Some great things in the history of the club, promoting this inclusive nature, which I think is run through the club's veins in many ways. It's something that I know that you've worked incredibly hard at promoting.
Yes, I've been a member. Well, this is quite bizarre. I was headhunted to join the Exeter City One Game, One Community group, which does all the diversity work, equality work, inclusion work in the background. That must have been about 15, 20 years ago. And we've done a lot of work in all sorts of different areas of inclusion. So, all sorts of aspects, run dedicated games, different things like that. So when Rainbow Laces came along, we thought it fit really well. And the club has been supportive with that since the very beginning. And we've done amazing things. We've had speakers. We've helped with some of the equality policies of the club. We've looked at that sort of thing, looked at that sort of information, and the club's really taking it on board. So looking at what we do on the day, we start off by having volunteers give out laces to people as they arrive. We've also given laces to all of the club teams, so Port Vale, Exeter, the under-18s, some of the disability groups, and those other groups. But they've all been supplied with laces, the women's team as well, all those sort of teams. So they'll wear them and just help promote that awareness and allyship, really. So yeah, that's some of the things that we do. We also have articles in the programme, announcements made, posters up around the ground that discrimination is not acceptable in any form, and this is just one small aspect of it. We ought to mention that this is just one of the campaigns that we do, because in February we'll be doing the Football v Homophobia campaign, slightly more dedicated to the homophobia aspect, whereas Rainbow Laces is a bit more inclusive in a wider context. So we do 2 pushes at that. We've also done several regarding racism and all the other aspects of hatred that possibly could come through. Club stewards are briefed, that any discrimination is not acceptable. So the club's got an amazing record for being so supportive. We really can't praise it enough.
Yeah, and you can't take it for granted either. This has been really hard work that's been put in over several years by many dedicated people. And I suppose we wouldn't be where we are without that hard work.
No, exactly. We've got Iska Apollo helping on the day. That's the LGBT inclusive football team that operates in Exeter and is allied to Exeter City. They'll be there on the day. They're taking part in the on-pitch half-time walk around with their flags and banners, just to raise awareness that they're out training now as we speak in the pouring rain. But I was there last week giving out laces, so they've got their laces already.
Amazing. But this is a really important issue. We know that football has a troubling history with regard to homophobic abuse directed at both players and fans. How big of an issue is it still in modern football?
It's getting better. I'm so old. I go back to the days of Justin Fashanu. So I was a friend of Justin Fashanu. I was a DJ down on the quay in Exeter, and Justin used to come along to the LGBT night I ran there, and that's how I got to know him, and that's how I got so involved in the football v homophobia, Rainbow Laces, and racism issues, equality, diversity, inclusion issues that I'm involved in. And so that's my involvement, how I first got so involved and deeply entrenched in it all. And that's why I keep campaigning, because, I lost my friend through the homophobia and racism that he suffered. But yeah, I mean, club is brilliant. I can't praise it enough, really.
And this is a campaign which Exeter City takes really seriously. I mentioned it earlier. Last week, we saw every single under-18s player wear the rainbow laces in their game against Arsenal. It must be incredibly pleasing to see a club support that campaign so strongly. I mean, having the whole team wearing the rainbow laces is unbelievable.
I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled. It just shows that allyship that we want. It's just something that's so encouraging. It makes it more acceptable. That's the aim, is to make it more acceptable for a football player to come out if they really want to. If on the law of averages, we must understand that there probably is one or two that might be LGBTQ. So it's just hoping that we can make it more acceptable. That's why we've put policies in place at the club. That's why we've done all this work. That should it be an Exeter player, then or then it's we know what we're going to do. We've got that in place. It's more acceptable in society. It's just making it part of everyday life. So that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah, well, 100%. And finally, I'm keen to learn a little bit more about the Proud Grecians, which I know you have a heavy involvement in. Exeter City's official LGBTQ plus supporters group, of course. What does the group do, and how can people join? I'm sure there's loads of people who would love to.
We meet occasionally. It's more of an ad hoc group, a chat group. There's quite a few of us, really. And we all get to chatting. We do meet up occasionally. Sometimes we welcome LGBT supporters groups from other clubs. So we'll probably meet up, have a social before a match, and then give them a tour of the ground, things like that, take them to the museum, meet up afterwards. So that's what we're doing, and even on away games as well. We've met up with others. So it's quite a friendly group, and it's doing well. So people can get in touch by the usual socials, Messenger, Facebook, Twitter, those sort of things. We've got a Gmail account and things like that. So everybody's welcome to get in touch. They don't have to be LGBTQ. It could be an allyship thing as well. We're a friendly bunch and just get along.
Exactly. I mean, it sounds like a really friendly group, and if you're keen on joining, then I'd encourage it, because it sounds like an amazing opportunity to meet people who have maybe had similar experiences, and yeah, exactly.
And if anybody's keen to play, they could just be a supporter, or they're keen to play. We can put them in touch with Iskra Apollo or other LGBT teams that are playing socially, and some are quite advanced levels. So we can put them in touch with those as well.
Well, Alan, keep up the amazing work, and hopefully, we can encourage people to pick up a pair of rainbow laces, attach them to their trainers, and wear them to the game on Saturday. Show your support.
We'll be giving them out. We'll be giving them out as people walk in. So look out for us.
Amazing. Well, I'd encourage everybody to wear a pair of rainbow laces and support the campaign. Of course, it's a great campaign to support. Alan, thank you so much. You've been amazing, and keep up the fantastic work.
Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Park Life, the official Exeter City podcast. Let us know what you want to hear more of via our social media channels, and don't forget to hit the follow button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening. Up the City.
He's been picked out. Socks down to his ankle. Picks out Stansfield. That's the